Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Kellum-Pathe. I am the Product Communications Specialist at Leica Camera USA. Thank you so much for joining us for another Leica Conversations. Before I introduce today's guests, a little bit of housekeeping. You'll see that there is a chat function right on the window, which will allow you to chat with us and ask questions throughout the program. This is also a great opportunity for you to share where you're tuning in from. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our guests, photographer and director, Oliver Halfin. Oliver, so good to see you. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. We can't wait to see your images. But before we do, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience today. How did you start with photography and how did you land up here doing these amazing images here in the desert?
Thank you, Nathan. My name is Oliver Halfin. I'm a photographer and director based in New York City. I have been a professional photographer for 10 years. Early on in my life, I came from a creative family, so I was taking pictures from a young age. And then I went to university to study marketing, and I ended up falling in love with photography while I was at university, and I was doing a lot of street photography then, and photographing a lot of parties. And I left university. This was in Brighton, in the south of England, the seaside town in the south of England, a very creative kind of hub down there. It's a bit like San Francisco is, say, in America. I left, and I actually kind of worked in the other side of the photography industry for a while. So I started, my first job was working for a limited edition book publisher called Genesis Publications, who are similar to Taschen, where they make very big limited edition, really well made, beautifully bound photography books. And I was working in the marketing department, but also kind of like wear a lot of hats in the company because it was a small team. And then I worked on, they'd release maybe 3 books a year, they still do. So I'd end up studying the images in the books and kind of working with the photo editor there, and really just fell more in love with photography, I think, at that point in my life, and was around so many just legendary photographers' archives of work, you know. I was there for a year, and then I left and I went and I started working for galleries in London. So I was kind of on the side of curating exhibitions, also worked with very established photographers. So I'd worked with licensing their images and that side of things. And then it was in my early to mid 20s, I started taking pictures again myself, more seriously. And I started within music. I would just take my camera to shows and start photographing them. And then that evolved into getting more and more professional and well-paid and paid work. And then eventually I left my day jobs from the other side of the industry and started taking pictures full time. I worked in the music industry for a while as a photographer, just doing that. And then around 2018, 2019, I started going more into the fashion world and working more in the fashion industry. And then the pandemic came in. That really sparked in my love for film photography as well. So I kind of developed during the pandemic more of an interest in that side of things because there was just so much time. I learned how to print, how to use the darkroom. I thought I want to utilize this time to just really like specialize on things. And then after that, I kind of based myself in America. So I moved from London to America, and now I'm here in New York, and I'm working really within fashion, documentary, still a little bit of music, but across the board. And I'm also working as a filmmaker too. So I've done a few short films, and I'm working on my first feature-length film, which is going into production next year. Mainly non-scripted and documentary film work. So
Amazing.
yeah,
And you directed the video that the audience just saw. So
I
that's
did.
a kind of a sneak peek. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Well, I think it's time to look into some images. Let's start off with your journey to Egypt. You first took the camera there, the SL3, to this wonderful country, and we're going to show a couple images from your trip here. Would you mind sharing with us what brought you to Egypt, and what did you like about going to this country and photograph this amazing place?
Yeah. Well, it's a long story, and I've been going to Egypt a long time. I've been going to Egypt since I was a child, and I had a big break, maybe 15, 20 years. And then I went back in maybe 2018, and I met someone called Matthias de Stefano, who is how would I say, he's like a philosopher and a conscious, he has a lot of knowledge about the world and the universe. And I actually met him inside the Great Pyramid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's a very interesting story, but we became friends, and a lot of different serendipities happened between our lives that kind of kept bringing us together. And basically, I've been going to Egypt with him because he does a lot of his energetic work in Egypt, where he'll go there and he'll work with the energetics of ancient sites, whether it's temples or the pyramids in this picture, and all over Egypt. And I've been there with him many times now. We've traveled all over, and we've gone to a lot of the structures, and the ancient sites were built along the Nile, because the Nile River goes from Sudan all the way through the country. And the quarries where the pyramids were built were in Sudan, and then they would use the Nile to transport the building blocks. So it was a great central river for building the empire and all of the temples. And yeah, we've been all over to really obscure places that not many people get to go to, and also to the Great Pyramids in Cairo, which everyone's familiar with. So this was in December, when I first started working with the SL3. This was in December 2023, and I was about to go to Egypt, and Nathan, the team at Leica USA, kindly handed me the SL3 to take with me on this journey. And I was actually going for the winter solstice. And I was there for a week documenting what was going on. But actually on this trip, I hadn't been back for a minute, but it was a bit more difficult to use the camera as I'd planned. Because some places in Egypt can be forbidden to take pictures, and it really just depends on, I think, the guards, or who's looking after, or who's in charge. And usually every time I've been before that, it's been fine, but this time I didn't get to take as many photos as I wanted to, and I actually wanted to film a short film there. That was the plan, but I couldn't use the camera or really bring out any cameras. So I took a limited amount of photos, but that one you saw was from a balcony looking over the Great Pyramids. This one was the first picture I took when I got to Egypt, and it was one of the first pictures I took on the SL3. And I was on my way from the airport early morning, and I saw this bridge which looks over the Nile, and we stopped, and I waited for the daybreak, and I took this photo. And it's usually quite overcast in the morning, so it was a very overcast, misty morning. But yeah, I really enjoyed shooting the SL3 there.
I love this shot. This is such a stunning image. It's so calm, right? And you have all these beautiful colors happening with the red popping off and that reflection on the Nile River there. I think this is a great kind of way to set the mood for the rest of these images, because they all kind of collide with that same kind of mood. Here's some more images here, again with the pyramid. And was this a portrait? Was this somebody that you met along the way?
Yeah, that was it was my friend Judith, actually, and she was with us, and she was tuning in to this temple, which is an Atlantean temple, which is outside the Great Sphinx. So outside the Sphinx, and it's funny because when people visit the Sphinx, no one goes in this temple because they all want to go and see the Sphinx. But this is an amazing temple with monolithic architecture. You can see those huge blocks behind her. Some of them are 10, 20 tons blocks.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
We still don't know how it's built, really. So it's a very special place that's always empty. So we were in there, and there was like beautiful pockets of light that were coming through. Probably about 8 a.m. And yeah, she was connecting to the energy in the temple. And this image on the right, this was a dust storm that came on the last day we were there. Because it was December, and I hadn't been in December before. The weather was very different. I'm usually there in the summer, and it was yeah, it was very overcast and a lot of dust storms, and this was the last day, and it was very otherworldly looking when there was this dust storm that came throughout all of the Giza pyramid complex.
Yes, I love that shot. And so you're shooting with the SL3. The SL3 is IP54 rated. It's great for these dusty environments. How was it with you during this moment?
Yeah, this trip I just bought the SL lenses, which are all sealed, and it was the perfect kit. I think I had the 24 to 90 with me, and I had a 35, the Prime 35 f2 APO lens.
Yes,
So
indeed,
I had
absolutely.
those. Yeah, okay, glad I got that right. I had those two with me, and it was perfect. I mean, that was a perfect kind of, just because like I said, I couldn't really bring a lot of equipment. Even that was too much, but just having those two lenses to switch before was like everything I need in terms of focal length. And also a lot of the environments were very dark. So I'd go inside the ancient sites and it would be just a tiny, tiny finite light. So the 35 was perfect to use in those environments. But yeah, the dust ceiling was, it was a great test for it because it was very dusty. And it actually rained as well. So it was dusty and it rained, and everything was
Wow.
perfect with the SL3 and the lenses.
A little bit of everything, right? For with nature, you don't quite know what's going to happen on these travels. And I agree with you, having a nice zoom lens like the 24 to 90, but also having a prime for those low light environments, or just to have a little smaller lens while you're walking around is perfect for these kinds of trips.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also just the cameras, the SL3 is very compact, so it's just a great camera. It's not heavy to bring around on the trip, and it's a lot of walking, a lot of doing 25,000 steps a day or something, just roaming around in the different places we were. So it was great to have that.
That's the fun part of it. That's how you discover. I
It's,
think that whenever I'm going to a new place, I'm taking my shoes, right? I'm walking everywhere because that's how you get to the spots that nobody else wants to go, right? So
yeah,
it's part of the journey. It's part of the exploration.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Here's another image. Again, I'm guessing this is also the Nile. Is this also in the morning as well?
This is the morning. Yeah, this is the same morning actually as the first image, and this was the Nile too. And as I said, it was kind of like an overcast morning, but there's a real beauty and stillness to the Nile River. It's so special. So yeah, I walked around, and then we came back when the sun was up, and I took this image, which was this was on the 90, the 24 to 90, and this was at 90. So this was I was far back and zoom right in.
Nice. So you get a little bit of that compression with that longer focal length as well. You can get all those buildings in one shot. For me, what I love about this is that I didn't realize how big this river is until I saw this shot. And this really provides context to the environment and how small these buildings are compared to how big this river is.
Yeah, yeah. There's a small boat you can see in the middle of the river. It's an extremely wide river. And it goes the whole width of the country. So and if you can ever get the chance to go to Egypt, I recommend to everyone to do a Nile cruise, which you can do.
Mm.
You can go, and it's amazing for taking pictures because the environment changes, the light changes, and as you go from Cairo to Aswan to Cairo to Luxor to Aswan, that would be the route.
Perfect. Well, we're going to travel some more, and this time we're going to come back to the States here. Starting with this image right here. I know that you collaborated with a number of artists. Would you mind introducing who this person is?
Yes, this is Tan Povey Martinez, and Tan Povey Martinez is a indigenous dancer and model. And I should probably give you background and context on the project as we just saw the video.
Please. Absolutely.
When I came back from Egypt, I really didn't get the chance to shoot video, so I thought to myself, I really wanted to do something that was impactful with the video and would hopefully, for the Leica community, inspire people. I had spent a long time when I got the opportunity. I thought to myself, wow, this is there's so many great people that have come before me, and it's still working with Leica, and of course the legacy of just amazing photographers and filmmakers. So I sat down and I watched a lot of the videos that are out there, and I watched Mary Ellen Mark, who's a hero and an icon. I saw she did a video, and everyone from Elliot Erwitt and Steve McCurry. And then I saw a lot of the videos from all the different regional Leica YouTube channels, and there was one that really stood out to me, and it was from a I have to recall the photographer's name. It's a female photographer who was made it for the SL2 in Australia, and it was kind of a video where it was like an on the road piece, but it was her and her husband, and she told it like a story. So it was like a beginning, middle, and end. And I thought it was fantastic. And I was thinking, you know, as me, as I'm more going into filmmaking and I'm making films, it's really stories. I always try and make stories that connect with an audience, that you know, there can be a beginning, middle, and end, but there's a real story in there. And that will resonate and be emotive in a way. So I kind of had all these things in my head, and that one video just inspired me, the kind of the road trip angle, but it was in Australia.
Yeah.
With the SL2. So I was like, I want to take inspiration from that. And then I was thinking, and I was like, okay, well, one place I've been to in the States before, which had always stayed with me, was the American Southwest. And 2 years ago, I drove from New York to Los Angeles, which I always wanted to do. And I have this idea, still want to do a book. I want to do a book and call it Coast to Coast. But I realized it's going to take, you know, a number of trips. It's not just one trip. And out of all the different states I went through, that I got to New Mexico. And I was tired by then because I've been, you know, driving from New York. And New Mexico was just something I'd never experienced before. It was just energetically very rich. And I was seeing all the landscapes there, and I was like, this is just, it felt to me underrepresented. It felt that it was something like, I don't know, it was just my perspective. I haven't seen it as much, but I do feel that maybe it is a kind of an unrepresented part of America. So as I was driving through, I was like, I have to come back here and do something. You know, I have to do a project here. And I went to White Sands in particular, and sat and meditated in White Sands, and it was just like, it was something that always stayed with me. So when I had the opportunity for this, I thought to myself, firstly, I was like, I wanted to do something that was inspiring and on the road and traveling. And then I was like, okay, I want to use this opportunity to go back to New Mexico. And then I thought to myself, well, I wanted to tie in like fashion and the arts. And recently I've been working with a lot of indigenous Native American fashion designers and artists. And when I work in fashion, it's always great to do a job or a story where it's really, really impactful and meaningful. And working with the indigenous community, it's like everything is just so rich in culture and history and meaning, the techniques used, the traditions that are passed down, the patterns can mean certain things to a tribe or, you know, a language. So I then remembered that I had someone that I'd met on a shoot called Amy Danette-Deal, who has a brand called For Kinship based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I called Amy and I said, look, I have this idea for this project, you know, and what do you think? And then we kind of just developed it from there. She loved the idea. And then Amy really, really helped by producing, because I didn't also realize how vast the state is. You know, you can drive for 10, 12 hours and you're still in the same state, you know, and there's not, you know, it can be a lot of desert land. And I realized also learned a lot about the reservation and how desolate it is, because it's something I hadn't experienced before. But Amy and we talked about creating a visual journey, which starts when we come to New Mexico, and we go through the different color palettes of New Mexico, which here is in Monument Valley, which is where we started. Very red. Monument Valley is, I guess, quite famous. And then we drove for 12 hours to another place, which was a skate park, which Amy had opened with Tony Hawk, which we can talk about later when we get to the photos. And then we ended up in another area called Bistai, the wilderness area. And that was something I'd never seen before. I felt that's a very unrepresented part of land. And then Amy works with brands, upcoming indigenous brands and designers, and she helps uplift them and kind of give people a spotlight. So she showed me all these different brands and designs and clothes she had, and said, look, we could work with all these different designs and clothes, and we could look for like really, really great upcoming indigenous talent to feature in the video. So I said, amazing, because then it's becoming, you know, I thought I'd love to elevate other voices that are not just mine. and it becomes more of a story with other dynamics in it. So that was the thought process. And then Kellum-Pathe Martinez is an amazingly talented dancer who came in to be a part of the video. And we started in Monument Valley. We drove for 9 hours to get there from Santa Fe, I think. And I was also, we had a small production team, so I was quite tired. So I did a lot of driving. I was driving as well. It was me and Joe Kami, my DOP, who's great, who really kind of put the whole video together. And me and him would share the driving. So we got to Monument Valley. It was January. So January in out there in the desert, it can be really, really blizzardy conditions. And Amy said, she said, the ancestors have blessed us because it was, we had just like a kind of pocket of great light. We had 2 days of great light before the blizzard came back. And it was like typical New Mexico January weather. And we wouldn't have been able to do anything like this out there because it would have been too rough conditions. But when we got to Monument Valley, it was still frosty and snowy in the morning. And then as the sun came out, it melted. And we stayed that night in a traditional indigenous dwelling called Hogan, which is it's made out of clay, I believe. And it's right in the middle of the reservation. And we stayed the night there. There's no running water or electricity. So for the cameras as well, I was like having all the dust sealed elements and everything. I thought, well, this is a real test of the SL3 and the lenses. And then we got up early morning and then we shot different looks and different textures for different backdrops. And this was about 10 a.m. and Ovi and I and Joe, we walked to another part of Monument Valley and we found this puddle, which was kind of like, it looked like you'd see, you know, an oasis in some, that's what it reminded me of. And it was reflecting the light because there's a very pink hue there.
Right.
And blue, and it was the way it was reflecting light. I was like, wow, this is like something I've never seen before, with the pink and the blue in this huge,
Definitely.
It was a huge, you know, and so we were taking a lot of portraits around that, and that's what this is.
That's amazing. I love the shot, the contrast between the sky and the red, and then you have the orange tones that kind of meet in the middle between the two. Very, very beautiful. Oliver, I have some questions here from the chat.
Thank you.
One of the questions is, you seem to be very well traveled. Wondering what travel tips you may have for someone who's going on an upcoming trip. Maybe what kind of gear you would want to choose.
Yeah.
Love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. Let me think about that. So, travel tips for an upcoming trip. I would say, well, it depends where you're going and it depends what you're doing. But if it's just an everyday trip and in reference to photography, I mean, I love the SL3 as a camera personally because it can also switch to video. And I'm, you know, as a documentary filmmaker and the places I've shown you and told you about, it would be just me there. So it's like easy to be able to switch to the two and not have a team with me. That's a great camera. I have a Q2 or Q3. I think that's a great travel camera. I think the M11P is an amazing camera. I would say if I was taking one lens with me, it would be a 35mm. I'd probably take as a focal length. I do love the 50.
Sure.
I've always been a huge fan of 50s, like my whole career. So I love 50mm. But I think if it was just like one lens going traveling, one lens, one camera, it would be a 35. And travel tips: bring extra batteries.
Yep.
Be prepared for where you're going because, you know, depending on where you're going in the world, the weather can drastically change. Especially for here in New York, I don't think I was quite ready for this summer to be so hot.
Yes.
Good, you know, a good travel tip actually for me is shoes. I used to, I mean, yeah, shoes is a big one. I think it depends what you're doing. And last year I did a lot of trips where, like, one was like Sedona in Arizona, and we were climbing a lot. We were climbing a lot of rocks, and it was very slippery. So I invested in like a good pair of climbing shoes, which also didn't hurt my feet. Because sometimes if I have the wrong shoes on, I'm walking all day, it can really kind of give you blisters and stuff. So I'd say invest in great footwear.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, I mean, you know, an iPad is always good to have when you're traveling.
Yeah. Especially with the Leica camera, since you can use the Leica Photos app to very quickly transfer those files to a bigger screen like the iPad
Yep.
and make your selects on the go. A lot of people
Yep.
do that, and the iPad fits in a backpack very easily. So absolutely, totally agree with those recommendations.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
going to go back to some of your
please do, please do.
we're going to go back to some of your images and want you to introduce another person here featured on the left-hand side. I believe that she's also a model.
Yes, this is Luca. It's her stage name, and Stepa is their name. And Luca is an amazing indigenous singer. She's a beautiful singer. I actually played in New York recently, and we did another photo shoot on the SL3, which was really nice. And Luca was another, when Amy and I were developing and producing this story, Amy said, you know, I have the two amazing indigenous models that would love to work with us on this. And this is Luca. So it was different. We were doing like one look shooting with Povey, one look shooting with Luca. And there were some moments of her playing music as well. We didn't end up putting that in the video because it didn't fit. But yeah, she's beautiful and very talented.
And we're looking, as we look at these images, you were using a number of different lenses. I know that you were using the 24-90, as you were talking about in your trip to Egypt. You were also using M lenses, the 35 Summilux and the 50 Summilux. Those lenses are manual focus. Of course, you can adapt them to the SL3 with the adapter. How was that experience with you as far as zooming in? Perhaps these models are moving around or dancing. The M lenses, of course, have this very particular look, which I believe is the main reason why you navigated toward those lenses, perhaps.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I love using M lenses, you know, so, and I know that you know, especially the SL3, it's like designed to use M lenses, you know, to use M lenses with it. And you'll be able to talk more technically about that. But I love the particular look. I love working with manual focus. Sometimes I like making my life hard when there's something where there's a lot of motion or something going on. I'll use an M lens, but it's worth it. I think when you get the shot, you know, and it's perfectly focused. It's so worth it. And I love shooting with a very shallow depth of field too. In this location, I had the 50 1.4 Summilux and 35 1.4 with me as well. And it was great. Also, the great thing with the SL3 is you can punch in and zoom into the screen, which I think, does it crop? How much? It's 100% zoom, and
yeah, you can see 100% pixel for pixel. Absolutely, yeah.
So that was the big benefit of using the SL3 with the M lenses, was being able to zoom in easily, you know, and especially because it can be, if you're outside and the light's very harsh, it can be hard to see. So it's you know, having a screen and be able to punch in was like great for focusing and everything I was doing.
You mentioned natural light, you mentioned harsh lights. How was that experience? Do you usually work in the studio? Do you like using natural light to photograph portraiture and things like that?
I do, yes, and I love using natural light. I'm a real lover of natural light. It's been my favorite way to photograph. But yeah, I've been working in the studio a long time too. So I do both, you know, and it depends what I'm doing. I think for this particular project, in my mind, I was like, you know, like it painted an image in my head that was natural light, and especially where I was going. I actually nearly did bring strobes with me. I have a lot of different kits. I have a big Pro Photo kit which syncs with the SL. So I was thinking of considering bringing strobes, but I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because it was only me. I'd have had to carry it, and it would have changed the whole thing, you know, and it would have changed the look of everything. So I just shot natural light, and especially somewhere like Monument Valley, right there. It's just, the light is amazing. You know, it's just such a beautiful light there. And then, you know, I had a couple of reflectors. So we'd use a white, silver, or gold sometimes. So some of the images have a bit of reflection on them, but mainly not. And yeah, this is with the 35, but with very shallow depth of field with the M lens. So
I
Um,
love this shot. This is one of my favorites that you've shared with us because, a lot of times, at least in my experience, there's not a lot of depth of field in fashion photography. This is, for me, has that documentary style applied to the fashion photography style, and that
mm,
combination together works really, really well. It's very cinematic, but yet you can see the vibrance of the colors and the textures. I love the hat. Um, One of the questions that we have in the chat here is, what
mm.
type of direction do you provide your subjects when you are in these situations, either both in natural light or in the studio?
Yeah, again, I think it depends what I'm doing. Sometimes there'll be a subject, a model, a subject that would be very, very free flowing, and I'll kind of tune into that. I think I'll spend a moment connecting with them, connecting with my subjects and getting to know them, and then work out how we'll do the shoot. And this was very natural because we were kind of working with the different elements, we're working with the different environments, we're working with all these beautiful clothes and lights, and we really just flowed, and I do give a direction, but I would just be intuitive with it, so I was just using my intuition, and then moving between like this image between different shadows and lights, and um, seeing different angles, and really trying to create compelling and interesting imagery with the camera. And also, I think one of my goals here as well was to really showcase the amazing color spectrum the camera has. Because there's
Yeah,
something, especially
definitely.
with Leica, for me, it's just the colors that you get from digital Leicas is like there's nothing else like that.
I agree.
So especially the SL3, and
It's
I'm just like, you don't have to. I don't love a lot of digital editing. I'm not a big, when I shoot film, I print. So it's like kind of think, well, printing is kind of like analog Photoshop in a way, because
sure.
it's like go into the darkroom
Yeah.
and everything you're doing is kind of like tools you'd have on Photoshop when you'd be retouching. So I do feel like I'm
Yes.
manipulating the film images somewhat, but then I'm quite a natural photographer. I like everything to look quite natural, and I don't like to edit a lot. If I don't have to, unless it's part of a brief. Sometimes that's part of a brief. But um, for the SL in these images, it's just like everything's already there. The colors are also rich, so you don't need to. So it just comes out of the camera looking amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, these are absolutely gorgeous. And I know that, you're in the desert here. So did you try to limit your shooting time to, sunrise up to 9 a.m., 10 a.m.? Because after that, the sun gets pretty high in the sky and it's a little more difficult to get these beautiful shadows. Or did you shoot all day and see what you could do?
We actually shot all day, actually,
Nice.
because I think if it was in the summer, it'd be too hot. I mean, it's where that is in the country. It's just I don't think you could do this now at all. But luckily, where this January this time of year, but the days were shorter, so it didn't actually feel. It'd still be dark. I think it was getting dark at like 4 or 5 when we were there in January, and it wasn't because it was kind of um, hazy. It wasn't hazy. It wasn't like the sun wasn't completely direct. It was still extremely hot because I know the UV's stronger there, and the ozone layer is thinner. So it's you have to be careful. And I'm that happens to me a lot when I kind of get carried away when I'm outside in a shoot and forget, and I'll get too much sun. I have to be careful with when I'm working with talent too. So
Sure. Yeah.
for this, but this wasn't too, because we had a base. So for example, in the first day we had the Hogan. We used that as a base, so we would go, and that was like a central location in Monument Valley, and we would use it to go and change and refresh and have some food and then get cool and then go out and find another location. But it was kind of in the middle, and then we had like a 360 of just phenomenal different landscapes and backdrops to work with. So
Mm,
this one on the left was towards the end of the second day, and then we went over to these rocks and cliffs that are very important historically, and we shot. We didn't really go on them out of respect. We didn't go onto the rocks, but we stayed near them. And there's some other pictures where it's kind of looking at the rock, and it's just like this phenomenal shiny rock face with the lights
yeah,
bouncing off it. And then the
definitely.
image on the right, this was at the end of the first day when it was. So both were kind of golden hour.
Beautiful. Beautiful shots.
To answer your question, I we worked throughout the whole day on all of the days. because we were filming
That's
video
good.
too. The whole goal was to really just like capture everything and create the story, so we did.
Yes. And you have the light and it's nice and warm, so might as well, right? It's like you said, there was a blizzard that came a couple days later, so you don't know what you have
Yeah.
until you lose it. It's
No, exactly, and that's what, because I mean, this was my third time in the state, and Amy, who lives there, she said she was like, "We are extremely lucky." She couldn't believe it after the shoot. She said, "We really were blessed to have 2 days of just sunshine, kind of sunshine." But she said usually it's like snow, ice, and really cold winds, and it would have been a whole different outcome. It would have been like that. I'm sure it would have made something work, but it would have been very different.
Well, let's continue our journey. And if you wouldn't mind, please introduce us to this person.
Yes, this is Sean Harrison, and he calls himself Sean Shine Harrison, and he's a beautiful soul who, again, we connected with on this trip, and Sean is a skateboarder, professional skateboarder and skateboarding instructor, and also a community leader. And to give you a background on the story, so within the reservation, Amy, who I was working with, she has a lot of foundations and charity initiatives, which are all, because the reservation, especially, well, a lot of them, and the one in New Mexico is very, very vast, and there's not a lot of resources inside of it. So Amy, some of her initiatives can be getting clothes to schools, getting cameras to schools, getting skateboards to schools. And one of her fundraising initiatives is this skate park, which is called the Two Gray Hills Skate Park. And it's in a remote part of the reservation in New Mexico. And this, from Monument Valley to drive here, was about 9 hours. It was a very long drive. And then we stayed at a boarding school, because there's a school nearby which is up to the age of 13. And it was the only place where we could stay. And Amy had put the skate park near the school, so it gives the children something to do. It gives them something to spend their free time and inspire them, and a tool and a sport to learn. And Sean he's the manager of the skate park. He helped launch it. Tony Hawk actually came to New Mexico and opened the skate park with them. And they do a lot of fundraising events. So they do like Go Skate Day was recently, which is worldwide. So Go Skate Day was here in New York. They did a big fundraising event there for the community. They do an all-female skate day to inspire women to skate, and Sean helps with all of these different initiatives. And when we stayed in the boarding school in the morning, it was impromptu. I didn't know I was going to do it, but Amy asked me if I could lead an assembly to the children there and talk to them about my career and what we were doing. I also, I had the SL3, so I stood up and I spoke to them, and they were asking me about Leica. It was really beautiful, because they were asking me, and I was telling them about the company and how the history of it, how important it is, in the world of photography, and I think in the world in humanity, and the impact it's had in society over many years. And that was actually a real inspiring moment for me, because I haven't done that before, and it was impromptu, so I didn't. And the amount of questions that came up from all of these children that want to know more and more about photography and what we were doing, it makes me want to go back and do something like that again. So I've been talking to Sean about trying to come up with another reason to go back and hold a workshop for the children there. But yeah, Sean he's a real character. He's great, and he's an amazing skateboarder. So we have in the video him skateboarding, and he's just a natural model. So we just didn't need to give him much direction. And, yeah, he's beautiful.
I love that. I have another question from the chat here, which is, you're mentioning this being some of the first times you're exploring the state. What was your impression of coming here? I mean, there's probably nothing like this in the UK. It's incredibly special, in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this beautiful landscape, and maybe what your expectations were, and maybe how the reality of that space came to you once you had the chance to be there for a little bit of time.
So this is specific to New Mexico, they're asking, as in? or America.
Sure, or I mean, maybe the U.S. in general as you travel the U.S. Your thoughts and your expectations on that. Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I've been fortunate, and I'm very grateful because I've been coming to the US for a long time. I've been coming here since I was a child. But there was a lot on. I was going to LA or not so much New York, but a lot on the West Coast. I was always fascinated with America and the history. And then as I got older and I got the opportunity to, I would travel to more states. And then, excuse me, when I was working within music, I would go with certain artists and bands and we would tour. So we would tour in, Europe. You do a European tour, you do an American tour, which is like it's like the European tour just but within one country, and it's
Right.
you could you
Yeah.
could spend 2 months just like touring through America, and there's certain bands that just tour America, and or they just tour Texas or certain
Sure.
parts.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think it was, I was again like very grateful and fortunate to have been able to have that as part of my career and life and experience that. But I think that really opened my eyes and mind to all the different places in America. I think it's, it's all just completely different. To me, it feels like you're kind of going to different countries almost, Well, I was
Definitely.
in Switzerland and we drove over the border to Germany, and you can go, we're in Basel, Switzerland, and you can drive and go to Germany, and you can also drive and go to France, and it's all within 5 minutes. And in 1 minute you're in
Right.
France, you're in Germany, then you're in Switzerland. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that in a way. Not, but it's culturally different. And you go to New Orleans, and it's like almost like being in Europe. And then New Mexico,
Yes.
it's I think I was very fortunate as well to have connected and been trusted to work with the indigenous communities there. The Navajo Nation is the reservation we're in, and the Dene tribe. So to have that experience and see that perspective and learn about the history there and the culture was really powerful to me.
Mm.
Yeah. So I know it's a complicated answer, but I love America on a lot of different levels. I love being here in New York, but every place is
Yep.
different. And I think I want to do it again where I get in the car and drive, because I actually love the East Coast and I didn't realize how populated it is till I started driving in from here, and
Mm.
my girlfriend's from Manhattan, but we would drive. We're like, oh, we're in Connecticut, then we're in Delaware, then we're in, then we're in Virginia, then we're in Washington, but it was just everything's kind of compacted. And that was interesting too. So I still have the bug of like the next drive I want to do, I want to go more north, because I've done
Yep.
across and down, but I want to go north and more to the national parks, because that was another route I looked at where you can kind of cut across from New York to LA, but just go through all the national parks, the northern route.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
I
Absolutely.
took more like, I wanted to go to Graceland. I wanted to I wanted to see certain states like Arkansas I'd never seen. I kind of just want to experience different
Yeah.
states. But yeah, so the next trip I do, I want to go more north, where I know you are, Nathan. You're kind of up in
I was going to
the
say we
Pacific
have a
Northwest.
number of beautiful national parks here that you should check out. So as you do that tour, let me know, because we have Mount Rainier National Park, the Cascades, all the mountains that you could ask for. They're all here.
I'll be very
All right.
tired to you, but I'll pay you a visit.
Sounds good. Perfect. Let's look at some more images, and I have some more questions as well from the chat. I have
Please.
a video creation question. When producing videos on the SL3, are you using a cage setup, or are you using cinema lenses or SL lenses, or how do you set that up for video on the SL3?
I have been, again, it depends what I'm doing, but so for example, if we're talking about the video, the SL3 release video, which Joe Kami, who is the fantastic, we worked together on many projects. He's coming to New York in a couple of days. He filmed that video on a combination of SL3, and because I know everyone asks this on YouTube, so I want to answer this question, because when I look at other videos, everyone says, what was it filmed on? And no one ever answers. So I'm going to say it was the SL2S and the SL3. He filmed the video on. And it was just handheld. It was just him handheld.
Mhm.
He used a gimbal actually just for the skating bit, which was an idea, because I do have a gimbal which I use for certain things, and it was he skates, so I think there was like elements I was busy taking the pictures, but he was with, if you watched the part with Sean Shine, he's got these beautiful shots where he's kind of skating with him and tracking, you know. And we couldn't bring
Yes.
a lot of equipment because it was just, the car was so full with clothes and, you know, just the gear we had. We didn't really have a crew. We had me, Joe, Ben, Luca's manager, who was kind of like our production assistant, Amy, who was styling and producing, and then the talent. So that was it. But we
Right.
were sharing. But yeah, on another, it depends again, like what the production is. If it was an advertising spot, maybe I would use a cage or something, or different sort of equipment. I'm filming a music video, 2 music videos at the end of directing 2 music videos at the end of the month, and I'm going to use the SL3 for that.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like, you know, having big productions is nice, but also there's something nice about having smaller teams. You know, it feels like you can be a little bit more malleable and you can move around a little bit more. You don't have to set up quite as quickly and things like that. So I feel like, especially for something like this, when you're traveling, maybe a smaller team is better than having a large setup for these shots.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, when you have a big team, and most photographers I think will like agree with me on this, it can restrict you. You know, if you have a big team and there's big, you know, producers, production team, everything there creatively can restrict you. You know, and if you have, sometimes I find some of my best work is where it's just free flowing and it's always just me and one assistant, you know, and I try and keep the team smaller. And this was a good example of that, because this was kind of, I knew we went into it with some unknown elements, you know, and it all came together very well. But we free flowed, you know, and it wasn't too rigid. So yeah, I agree with you on that completely.
So we're ending to the end of your images here. I want to end our conversation with this image. I love this image. I believe that you said it was shot in the Bisti Wilderness National
Yes.
Park. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that location, but I also want to know what Sean is wearing. I think this is such a beautiful garment.
I need to find out the designer. Which, because it was there was like maybe 50 different designers, and on the YouTube, I made sure to give Jack, who's the head of Leica USA social media, I made to give him all of the credits for all of the designers and it's a big list, but I can't off the top of my head. I don't want to get the name wrong, but I believe it's upcycled, because a lot of the clothes were upcycled. So it's you know, unwanted clothes that have been found and then changed and resold, which is great. And this has been dyed. I think it's a military poncho, a military rain poncho that has been upcycled and re-dyed. So that's what he's wearing. And like I said, he's a skateboarder and natural model. It just looks so great.
Natural model. Exactly, yeah. And what about the location? This is such a crazy spot with all these different rock formations. I've actually never seen this before. This is crazy.
Yeah, so the Bisti Wilderness area, I would say to everyone watching that I've never seen anything like it. And I've been to a lot of different landscapes around the world, and just this was so unique. When I said in a video it felt otherworldly, but it really did. It felt like it could be another planet. So I believe that it's clay, and it's shaped and it molded and formed with the weather. So if you, it goes on forever, and you can go up high, you can kind of look down on it. There's some other pictures I have with that, and you can see the rock formations, but they change into all kinds of shapes. Some of them are big rocks with holes inside of them, and it's ever shifting. So this was the last place, this was the last location. So we were very exhausted, and it actually the change, and it started to rain, so we couldn't stay there. Because Amy had said, sometimes if it's a beautiful sunset, the sun hits the rocks and you get this kind of pink hue. So it's like
sure.
it looks like Mars, you know. It's kind of like all these rock formations, and it really does. It's pink, and I was hoping for that, but it wasn't. It didn't. So it was more sand gray tones, but it was stunning. I couldn't believe it. So if anyone, I would say research it, and because I believe it might be. It is native indigenous land, and it's part of the reservation. So you have to go there with respect, and you have to look online and see and adhere to everything. And would look into that, but I would say do make the trip if you can. It's stunning.
I think what I like about this space is that you get all these textual elements, but it's fairly monochromatic, and it allows for your subject and what they're wearing to pop, especially with the colors that Sean is wearing here. I think that works really, really, really well.
Thank you.
We have a quick lightning round as we end the program here.
Okay.
Just a quick, a 5-second answer to the following questions. First question is
quick answers, Nathan, not
yes.
Not long.
Okay. Let's do one lens for the rest of your life. What lens would that
50
be?
mil.
50 mil, okay.
50 mil.
Wine, beer, or coffee?
Wine.
Last book that you've read?
Last book that I read was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is a famous book, but I just found it when I moved to apartments, and I found it and I read it. So yeah.
Nice. To crop or not to crop?
To crop.
To crop?
I mean, it just depends, but yes, to crop.
I agree. It's a hard question. What's next for you? I know that we're doing a number of things in the next couple of months. I know that you have upcoming projects. One of the things I want to share with the people in attendance is that you'll be doing some photo walks at some of the stores on the East Coast in New York, in Boston and DC, coming up in late summer and in September as well. But we'd love to hear what you're up to in the next couple of months. You mentioned shooting a music video. I'm sure that you have tons of projects coming up.
Yes, it's a busy summer. What I'm doing over the next couple of months. I'm going to the Hamptons now. Actually, I forgot about that. Oh, so tonight I'm going. It's Pride Month here in New York, and I've never been to the Hamptons, and actually this is something I love to do. It's a charity fundraiser for breast cancer. So I love to be able to work for something that's for a good cause. And it's an art show raising money for breast cancer in the Hamptons. So I've got to get the Hampton Jimny bus there tonight, because apparently it's hard to get to. So it's like a 4-hour bus journey. And I'm going to shoot with the SL3. I'm going to shoot video. They want some video for the charity. So there's 2 nights. And there's some great photographers. There's actually some amazing photographers that are going to be exhibiting work there. So I'm going to interview them a little bit, and then I'm going to be taking lots of stills. So I'm excited for that. Then I come back, and I have Joe, my DOP, coming in, and we're going to do a few days of pre-production for the music video shoot, which we'll be shooting. We're filming at a club called The Cutting Room, which is in Manhattan, at the end of the month. Then from there, I go to Los Angeles, and I am going to Matthias, who I went to Egypt with, is doing his first talk in Los Angeles. So I'm going there to support him. I'll be taking pictures there. Then I'm going from Los Angeles, coming back, actually filming a music video, then going to go back to Los Angeles. And I just had a call because I have a shoot for a new venture. Actually, I can't say what it is, but it's in the meditation space. So it's great because if I can do something that ties together a commercial shoot with something that in the world of, say, consciousness, that gives me creative freedom, which the client has given me creative freedom. It's amazing. So we just had our first book. There's a last minute job that I'm going to be doing in LA, which is great. Great concepts. And then from there, I'm going to Hawaii for the first time. With Matthias, we're going to Kauai, the island of Kauai.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've never been to. So we're gonna go there, and he's doing another talk which is related to a synchronistic date on the 8th of August, and then we're going to be spending like 5 days in Hawaii. So I think I'm going to try and travel and shoot as much as I can there, really soak in that landscape, and then I come back to New York, and it's in Santa Fe. If anyone's near New Mexico, actually, this is a great thing to go to. It's the Indian market, it's called, and it's once a year in the middle of August in Santa Fe. And Amy, who has the brand For Kinship, is hosting an Indigenous Fashion Week in the middle of August. And she's actually got the Vancouver Fashion Week, which is a lot of brands that are located in the Vancouver area are coming down to Santa Fe. So there's already her last event in New York was in the New York Times and Vogue. and I need to. I'm going to go for that, but I don't know who I'm shooting it for and what I'm doing, but I have to work on that. But so I'm going to be in New Mexico again, middle of August, and then I think was the end of August. I probably need a break then. So
Yeah, seems like a lot.
so yeah, it's actually a time period where I'm like, there's a lot coming up in a few weeks, but it's good. You know, it's all very exciting. So.
It's good to be busy. Yeah, especially when you get to travel to all these amazing different spots. I mean, I can't wait to see your perspective of Hawaii, to see your images from that space. It's so different and special. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I can't. Yeah,
I want to.
Sorry, please carry on, Nathan.
No, please go ahead, please.
No, I said one of the SL3 release videos was filmed in Hawaii, and it blew my mind how amazing it was. I thought it was a really beautiful story and very touching, and just I hadn't seen that before. So yeah.
Yes, indeed. Monet, yeah, her work is incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to share some quick updates regarding the Leica Academy. We have a couple slides up with QR codes. First off, we have a owner's workshop that are available to people that have purchased Leica cameras. If you recently purchased a Leica M, a Leica SL, a Leica Q, or even one of our compact cameras, you can join us in learning more about your system, learning more about how to use the camera, the different menus. Simply going to your phone and clicking on this QR code will allow you to see what is available in the next couple months. We also have workshops on the East Coast. Here's an example of this with Jim Sullivan, who is doing some food photography work with Michelin star chefs. We also have workshops in Texas. If you want to do and photograph rodeos, this is the place to be. This is an incredible workshop to do something maybe a little bit different than what you're used to doing, with the guidance of someone who has a lot of experience in the field, Rudy. And we also have workshops on the West Coast. This is going to be a workshops specifically geared to people that are interested in working on their portraiture. This is done with Mark DiPaolo. Mark DiPaolo is very known for shooting, just like you, Oliver, with the M lenses. He shoots with the Noctilux wide open. So there's a lot of creative opportunities through this workshop. I'm also want to share with you some ways to get in touch with Oliver. Here is his website and his Instagram handle. Please follow him. Please see what he's doing in the next couple months and see his work and what he's been doing. You can also follow us on Instagram at Leica Camera USA, as well as the Leica Academy. I'll leave this slide up for a little bit. But Oliver, I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for sharing with us in this incredible project. I think people are excited and inspired to see what they can do with their camera. Again, I especially love those images that you shot in New Mexico. The colors and the textures were absolutely gorgeous. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking and sharing all these stories. And if anyone wants to come and ask me any questions, or please do, feel free to. I'm going to share the video, the SL3 video, soon on my page. And I wanted to mention as well, in September, I'll be potentially doing some workshops too. So which I know that the dates are not released yet, but I have some great concepts in mind for those. So I'm excited to be hosting it.
Absolutely. And again, we'll be doing photo walks and ways for you to try out the SL3 with Oliver at our different stores on the East Coast. Again, New York, DC, and Boston. And we'll be publishing those dates very soon as well. Oliver, I'll say goodbye to you. Thank you so much again for your time. And until next time, thank you again.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.